right, man, it feels weird to be back. So, took a bit of a hiatus, and first I want to just really apologize for that. I didn't mean for this huge lapse in time since a podcast would be released. So I was in the midst of moving. My girlfriend and I moved into a new apartment, which does mean a new studio for the podcast. Before, this podcast was being recorded in the bedroom, and then I was making music in this nook in the living room. I mean, it was not enough space for us. So now there's a dedicated room for making music, for making the podcast, and to add to that, now that there's this space, I will be doing in-person interviews that will be videoed and will be on YouTube. And also for each episode from here, I will have a visual component where there is myself and then the guest who is, video conferencing in, if they're on the other side of the world, that will be on YouTube. So we're moving forward on that. I'm working things out, and that's another reason it's taken a bit to get an episode out. But before we jump into anything else related to the podcast, the song we had just heard is a track titled She Said from the electronic music producers Feelin and Tin Man. Now, they actually, this is a bit different how this song was chosen. There was a song competition through the Audio Apostles Collective. For those of you who had heard me speak about Audio Apostles in the past, know that it's this collective of electronic music producers. I think the best way to put it is it's this this group of supportive musicians that are, one, just great to chat with, great to share music ideas with, talk about music in general, making music in general, mostly through a Discord chat, but they do have a website as well. So I would highly recommend checking out the website. It's audioapostles.org. You can get a link there to the Discord channel, and really, you have the ability then in this Discord channel to just meet a lot of people that are kind, wanting to talk about music, share ideas, share music. So it's really, really cool. So they did this competition alongside the podcast, and the winner of the competition was Feelin and Tin Man with the track She Said. So I really do suggest checking out their music. If you'd like to check them out, you can find Tin Man at soundcloud.com/Tin Man Music official, or Feelin at soundcloud.com/Feelin. And Feelin is spelled Feyln. Again, just an amazing track, and there will be more of these competitions when I and one of the founders of Audio Apostles listen to all these tracks. I mean, everything was absolutely amazing, and we are just really happy with how many people submitted tracks. It was just really, really cool. So there will be more competitions for sure. Now, jumping into the podcast itself, I was fortunate enough to speak with Mark Mackenzie. He, of course, has released on Mau5trap, a extremely, extremely talented music producer, and being able to chat with him was just incredible. I mean, such a cool guy, so down to earth. It's funny, when we started this podcast, we weren't even recording, and we were talking for like 30 minutes about just, music, bullshitting before we even got into the conversation. So it was really, really cool. He does have a lot to share on this podcast in terms of new releases, in terms of a label that he's starting, and he talks about in the podcast. So really, awesome episode, and just feel really fortunate to be able to take some time out and talk with him. So yeah, if you would like to check out his music, if you have not heard it, check him out on Spotify, just at Mark Mackenzie, SoundCloud as well. And really, check out the music. He does have more stuff coming. He talks about it in the episode. So there's a lot of music to look out for. So that's it. We're going to jump into the episode. He did share out a track that is unlicensed, unreleased yet. So it's a way to listen to some of his unlicensed music, just because I'm trying to be careful about what's shown out here on the podcast. But so we'll hear a little clip of his music and then jump right into the conversation. Again, thank you to everyone who submitted for the song competition. Thank you to Mark for coming on and taking time out of his day to do this episode. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look to speak with you all again soon. right, we are live. Mark Mackenzie, how's it going, dude?
Not bad, thanks. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. So it's funny, man. We just started this call for people that are catching the podcast like right now as we start recording, but we just went deep for like 30 minutes, man. It was just like right down the rabbit hole, starting to talk about music and everything. So
yeah, we could have done a podcast on its own there.
I know, man. This will definitely be a cool one, man. But hey, first of all, I really appreciate you coming on, man. This is going to be really cool.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for having me on. It's the first time I think I've actually done a podcast interview, I think.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
I say that with caution in case I have done something a few years ago, but I'm not at this level. Let's say that. I've definitely not done a podcast. I really enjoy your podcast. I've been listening to them actually for the last few weeks and that since you got in touch. I think they're really nice.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Yeah, dude. I'm super stoked. And it was awesome just right off the bat being able to write you on Instagram, and you were so just easy to talk to you right off the bat. And you're like, absolutely, whenever you want to do a podcast, I'm absolutely down. So, dude, I really appreciate it. So
it's like the only thing I could talk about for hours on end. I'm always being told to shut up about it. So to be able to do it like properly, it's it's pretty easy.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah. Well, I'm stoked, man. I'm definitely stoked. So, So just starting off, like right off the bat, so you are based in Edinburgh, Scotland, is that correct? I'm
actually in Inverness, Scotland.
Or Inverness, excuse me, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's like we were just talking about earlier about, the size of Scotland compared to where, you are in America there. It's about 3 hours north from Edinburgh. So I'm in the Highlands.
Oh, okay.
The best way to describe it to anyone in the world is literally 10 minutes away from Loch Ness. So Loch Ness from my house, you could drive straight for about 10 minutes down the road and you'll end up there. So it's a really nice part of the country, but it's a really, really small city. We actually got city status through some sort of default because we have a cathedral or something, I don't know. So we're not a real city, as people like to point out to us all the time, but we're named a city. There's a bit of background for it.
No, my apologies. I thought that was within Edinburgh, so my apologies. I'm
That's all right. Might as well be.
Yeah. Well, I'm like over on the totally other side in Arizona in the desert, so it's like totally different. But yeah, man. So that's super cool. So, kind of as you mentioned, smaller city. How did you start out getting introduced into electronic music? Where did that kind of passion begin for you?
Yeah, I mean, every time I always like think back to that, I think I've got like there's never really like one point I can always sort of go to because you know yourself, you're kind of like a lot of people, it's like you mold into it. Do you know what I mean? You become like sort of, I don't know, it just becomes part of what you're doing. And I think the first memory I have of working with kind of music or audio kind of thing is I used to, my dad got like this, it was the first time kind of laptops became popular and he had one from work, and because they were still not that affordable at the time. And it used to have an audio editing software on it. And I used to nick his laptop all the time just to go on there and cut up songs to try and make instrumentals.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I had a couple of friends in school who used to try and rap, and we used to take them in and sort of use them as our own instrumentals, and people thought, I used to just thrive with people, oh man, that's so cool, how'd you do that, and I used to, like anyone, it was feeding an ego kind of thing, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to do more and more and more, and then eventually I bumped into a friend of mine still, Connor Byrne, who's based in Glasgow, and me and him were out, we used to, we were wee Neds, as they call it over here. That's like, I don't know what your word for that would be over where you are, but it's kind of like, we were delinquents up to no good.
Oh, yeah.
Up and about drinking like every night, out in what we used to call the shop, down there, and I bumped into him through a mutual friend, and he was wearing like a Burberry cap and scarf over his face, thought he was solid and that, and he was like, oh, you make music? And I was like, yeah, I make music. And he's, oh, I make music as well. And we're kind of showing each other tunes, and he's like, oh, I use this Acid Pro. So that was the first time I'd ever been kind of introduced to a DAW. So he came up to my sort of, like I was telling you, I've got kind of, when I was at my parents', I had this studio me and my dad built in the garage, why, I don't know, because I still had like zero equipment, and I think I had like a turntable and just a laptop or something, but we built this whole room for it, but it was good all otherwise. So he came up there and started trying to work in Acid Pro, and I don't know if you're familiar with Acid Pro.
No,
It was made by Sony years back. I mean, it's pretty much dead now. Nobody uses it anymore. But back then, that was one of the more sort of popular DAWs. I mean, this is going back like 12 years ago or something. So
wow, yeah.
I was about 14 years old or something, and used to have to kind of, it's like, it's not quantized kind of DAW. You know, you had to take like drum samples and kind of like move them about to get them in time and stuff, and you could kind of judge. You had to get your first loop in time, and then you could kind of copy and paste that, and so it's really an audio editor, but it's layered. And we made some hard dance music at the time, and it was like everyone was sending it to each other on MSN. I think it was called DJ.
Yeah,
MSN at the time.
Yeah,
and I think it was called DJ Max at the time, and he was DJ Johnny B, and that was essentially where I kind of got started, and then got into FL Studio. Again, making instrumentals for people, just making electro kind of music, and only I think about like 4 years ago, probably not even that, I switched over to Ableton and started using a lot more hardware and things, you know, collecting hardware over the years, and just it really became kind of serious about, you know, I think I got my first release when I was about like 18. I was living in Glasgow at the time, and I can't even remember the name. I think it's Dirty Red was the name of the label, but it was one of those, you know, sent a song and I was like, yeah, sure, we'll sign this, and it was kind of out on Beatport that week. Do you know what I mean? And
right.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a long story for you.
Oh no, that's
getting started, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's so cool to see, like, you know, how you know, having these conversations with different producers and yourself, seeing how far it goes back, man, to hear about these different you know, DAWs that are now dinosaurs, pretty much. No one uses them, you know, but that's
I was so like, I couldn't believe when I opened up FL Studio and it was like you could just like join the dots basically and put in. I was like, oh my god, this is gonna save so much time. And it, you know, it came with like a Dead Mouse sample pack in it and stuff. I was so like, I was in love with it when I first got it. But yeah, and the whole time I was doing all this, I've kind of been, you know, DJing on the side as well, because I used to do like, even when I was in like primary school, I was doing like school discos for people, and
cool.
Yeah, and then I DJ'd my older brother's prom. Like, that was so weird because I was younger than him, and I was like there DJing, and I was told like, you know, you're not allowed to drink and anything. You're not allowed to, like, I was told by the teachers, like, no dance music. You know, no dance music. You're playing it. And I opened with the Chemical Brothers. It was the first track. And it went down really well. Everyone enjoyed it. And so, but that's always been in the side doing that. And I worked in a club, you know, for when as soon as I was 18, I was working in a nightclub. I was helping run events and things. And so I've always been kind of surrounded by like the dance culture and trying to push things here in Inverness, because we don't have what we do now. You know, we have a kind of scene going now, but like it's always dipped in and out over the years, and especially when I was sort of 18, it was kind of like coming out of its high, do you know what I mean, and coming back down. So it's always kept me involved, is trying to put on events as well. And so being a producer is kind of, this is why recently, I'm just going on and on, by the way. I'm not,
No. This is good. I love this. Seriously, for real.
Yeah, so like, you know, being this kind of like doing releases now in like a worldwide kind of sense with like Mau5trap and stuff now, that was kind of, you know, I didn't see myself going in that direction, to be honest. This was more, I was doing this for here, you know, and to be in Inverness, I just wanted to be part of the club culture here and push things here. And so this was an added extra that sort of came along. And I mean, I've always had high hopes for all that stuff, but it's certainly not something I was preparing for, was going into doing production on like a worldwide, if you can say that, do you know what I mean? Like
for sure. Yeah.
It's just been part of, I shouldn't really say like a hobby, do you know what I mean? And it's an interest that's kind of gone too far.
Yeah. No, like, I mean, I see it with a lot of people where it starts as this interest, right? I mean, someone stumbles upon like a software like that or something that cues them into, oh, this is of interest, but it stumbles into this passion, addiction type of thing that just, you can't stop it. You know, once the ball's rolling, I mean, that's it. That's so cool. So when you were a bit younger and you were maybe around 18 and you were, working for this club and starting to do the promotion and stuff and really getting immersed in the scene. Were you at that stage in your life thinking, music is it? This is what I want to do with my life. I want to do this. I want to produce, kind of all in or has this, So it's been a hobby that you said like, this is what I want to do with my life. And it's kind of built into this. Yeah.
Definitely felt like it was, I was quite smart when I was in school, but I hung out with guys that weren't school orientated and kind of, messed it up for myself a wee bit in the sense I didn't get my head straight, and I was talking about going off and doing like engineering and all. And then by the time I got to what they call sixth year here, is your kind of last year in high school, I was kind of like, I was already doing my music, and I'd been told by music teachers in the school, oh, you can't do electronic music. That's not a subject. You can't.
Right.
You're not good. If you're not good at traditional music here, typically in school, it's probably changed now, but back then it was kind of like, well, you're not a musician because you can't play the bagpipes, you can't play the fiddle, you can't play the drums, you can't play the guitar. Well, you're not a musician. But then I found out that they did this college course for sound production. And that's really kind of like obviously the live sound and studio work and stuff like that. So I was just like, do you know what? I'm just gonna go and do that and just see what comes off it. And I went up and studied 2-3 years, I think it was. I did studying sound production, and it was amazing. It was really fun, and a lot of what I learned in those years has set the foundations for getting myself to a level now, to where I am, because I felt like it kind of added that professional side to everything, understanding, how audio works and all that, understanding how to get the best out of it. It was definitely the best thing I did, even from employment perspective and financial perspective. It's one of the worst things I've ever done, because it leaves you kind of like, I left after my HND. I actually got ill before I could. On my last week I got very ill and I had to come back up the road, and I was kind of left without this certificate and that, and I'm thinking, because I aced the whole course. I'd done well. It was like second nature doing the course, because it was just I loved it, do you know what I mean? So it was never going to be anything I was going to struggle at, because it was just like I'd soak that up all day, but when I came back up the road, I was like, what the hell am I going to do as a job? And I ended up working in a club for a couple of days a week, and I guess wherever the music was, that's where I was going. Do you know what I mean? And and even the job I'm in now, because I still work 5 days a week on top of what I do, and because it's to pay for the mortgage and things like that, it's the only stable way to make sure I've got enough money, and music just doesn't it just doesn't pay enough on a regular basis. So so even the job I'm in now, I got into that because I was tutoring music at the time, and my work that I'm currently in, they saw me working with one of their clients and asked if I wanted a job there, working to getting people into employment, supporting sort of people with disabilities and things into working and employment and stuff. So everything that I've done in a sense has come from, even we were talking about my fiance, I think, I met her through friends in music college, and she came along to one of my club nights. One of my mates told me that she fancied me, and that was it from there, So it's funny. I think everything has been music, and it's I've totally forgotten your question. I've just gone on a total tangent.
No, well, I was just gonna say, I think earlier you mentioned that you were thinking about early on maybe doing something like a more refined path, maybe that would be promoted by the education system. Like, okay, you could go and be in engineering or in accounting or whatever. But really, I think the fact that you have strictly followed what you love is gonna lay this foundation for a life that's going to just be way more fulfilling and enriching with what you love to do. And I honestly, I really respect that a lot, because you've found what you love and you're committing 100% to it. And I really think that doing that is what leads to real success in this in this industry. I mean, that's what it is. It's just total commitment to it, and over time it just builds and builds and builds. And now you see, look, I mean, you have releases on Mau5trap. I mean, it has come together, and it will continue to do so. You know,
yeah. And I think totally. And you know, I mind if young people I work with in the music side of things, and I try and tell them, it's like, you know, don't measure your success by you know, full-time. You know, full-time music is something that very few people are lucky to do, and
right.
And it's not the definition of a good artist. And it's like you said, you know, it's you've got to find a balance, and you've got to be able to do what you love, and also you know, look after yourself and things. And there's no shame in providing, you know, through working, doing something else, but also find time to do what you love and that. And yeah, you're right. I am chuffed that I think I find a balance. I'm really lucky with the job I have. They're very flexible, and they let me, if I've got gigs and stuff, I can get time off, and I come home at 5, I get a couple of hours, you know, work on some music, and then the weekends, you know, it's fantastic. And I mean, this is where I want it to be. So to be full time would be a great bonus. But yeah, no, totally. I couldn't ask for more in that respect. And like I said, tell, you know, young people that I work with, it's about getting that across to them. It's like, you know, don't worry about the money side of it. It's like, this is going to be a long-term game. You're not
right.
I think this is a thing nowadays as well. Is like, because dance music and electronic music is so popular now, and people kind of, it's glorified. You know, it's very glamorous and on Instagram, and people see the very tip of the mountain. Do you know what I mean? They see these artists that are like touring and making a lot of money, and you know, they're booking artists that are like 10 grand for a DJ set and things. And I think people think that must be the life, you know, that we all have. And it's like, no, you know, 99% of the people in the industry who you've probably heard of as well are, you know, they're balancing a working life outside of music, you know, and it's got to be a passion foremost, you know. You have to do that for years and years before it pays off. Yeah, you get anywhere, you know. But and I'm not really. I think I'm still aiming to go, you know, full time of what I'm doing, and I'd love to be doing it on a full time basis, and that's the plan. Is, you know, I've got a 5-year plan where I'm gonna be wanting to be full time, you know. But till then, just got to enjoy it and just, you know, do it when I can.
Exactly, because I think there's a couple things that I think are just so interesting there. If you listen to interviews with anyone who's quote unquote made it, you know, like when you talk about that 1% that are, you know, glamorized and people are fawning over on Instagram or whatever, you know, their early stages, they were, you know, sleeping on couches, doing whatever they can to tour, to make music, whatever. I mean, it's not just woke up, rolled out of bed, produced, you know, a banger, and then what, you know, just for the people out there that are kind of new to music. I mean, everyone has that story where they start out and it's just complete commitment to the craft, just for the love of the craft. And, you know, things develop that way. I listened to this interview recently with Travis Barker, and he had just this incredible story when he was young, around middle school, high school. He played drums all the time, and his parents said, you know, either get a job and you can live here, or if you want to keep doing the drums, you can't live here because you have to pay rent. And so he moved out and he just started living on couches, just playing drums in bands, and that was it, you know. And he's, of course, a very small, you know, one select story where he became ultra famous, but he didn't know that. You know, he just said, I'm going to give my life to this because he loved it, and that's it, you know?
Totally. I think it's that drive as well. It's like, if I don't try it, then I'll never know. And, you know, you've got to take that jump at some point, haven't you? Like what he's saying there is like, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? And I guess that was my point when I left school, was kind of, I could have started. I seen a lot of my mates going to apprenticeships, and you know, jobs are kind of, and they're great jobs, and some of my friends have done amazing, and they're happy, and that's fine. But it just wasn't me. I didn't see myself, you know, being a plumber or a painter and decorator at the time, and you know, that's what all my friends were doing, and they made good money, and I've watched them all surpass me in that sense of, you know, they're driving around in nice cars, or they were getting houses before me and things. But you know, sometimes people are made happy by different things, and music is what essentially, at the end of the day, when I've had a bad day and I come in and I start working on music, it's all forgotten, you know, and it can make a bad week 10 times better when I finish a tune. You know, anything could have happened that week. In fact, sometimes I find when the worst things happen in my life, I make the best music. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be something that's driven by emotion. And so, no, you know, I'm happy with the choices I made in that respect. And it's a much more fulfilling kind of life, you know, regardless of the success that it may, you know, seem to others. It's like, I think I'd have still been happy even if I was, you know, not putting releases out, kind of just coming back to my studio and working on stuff, because it's some sort of therapy to it.
Oh yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah. And I think only I would say like music producers for sure can relate to that, and the same people doing, you know, different artistic pursuits is the same way. But once you get drawn to that, and once you're fixated on that craft, and it can bring you that joy, and as you mentioned, like you can have a bad week, but if you're working on a track, it'll just pull you right out of it, and you can feel as like this therapy. You know, you can't really convey that to people that don't have that. It's hard to have that conversation sometimes, you know, and you know, as we were talking about earlier, you know, I have a long-term girlfriend, you have a fiance. I mean, they're kind of on for the ride now a little bit too, because like once you're committed to this, and once it becomes this, it kind of does become an addiction, you know, it's just, there's no going back.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, like we were talking earlier, you know, my fiance now realizes, you know, if I'm going to lock myself in this room to do music, it's like there's no disturbing me for hours. You know, I'm on a different plane. I'm not listening. It's like we were talking about there about that therapy. I almost feel like you get into this meditation mode where you suddenly like you almost feel like you're so sunk into a project, you start almost floating in yourself, where you're like, your eyes are so fixed on something, your ears are so fixed on something, you're totally out of the elements, you know, and it takes a couple of hours to get into that zone kind of sometimes, you know. So the moment someone walks in and disturbs you, they can take you right out of it. So, I mean, that's something that she's learned recently. I say she's learned, that sounds terrible, but you know what I mean? She's absolutely lovely, my fiance, but, you know, like she knows now that she understands that, you know, that's the only way in. And it's almost like if I don't get a track, we were talking about, you know, you get a track done and you feel better. I could feel like awful, you know, for weeks if I'm having a really bad episode of not getting music done, finishing projects. And I think this is the bane of like every producer's life, you know, is when you get in that rut for, be it a month or so or whatever, you know, it can be different lengths for different people, but it's like, you know, when you get into this, you can't finish a project and you just starting projects over and over again, and it can bring you down. I start feeling like, you know, I start thinking about it like at work, or when I'm out about, I can really do with finishing a track. Like it would just make me feel. And in a day that I get it and I break through, I'm skipping around, you know, at work and that, and I feel 10 times better.
Oh yeah,
it's like getting something out of my system. Do you know what I mean? And it's like having that that productivity of getting it out. It's just like the best feeling ever, you know.
Yeah. You get that feeling of like completion, right? So you finish something and it's right. You feel like you've accomplished something. It's productive, and I mean, absolutely. I totally see that. It's funny. I was just actually yesterday. I was watching. There's a documentary out on Flume. It's really, really good. It's like a 4-part series. It's out on YouTube now, and he's working on it was when he's working on a second album after that first album second album was like life-changing for him. And then it's kind of talking about making music from there. And it's so interesting when you get to a point, and you're emphasizing that same thing too, is you get to a point where you really understand internally how you're feeling in a creative space, because he was mentioning if he ever starts feeling anxious or pressure around making tracks, it's like, I can't do it. That will just kill the music. It totally kills creativity. And he's so in tune with that he will, you know, go and just start surfing or whatever and try and just get re-inspired and remove that pressure, that external pressure, or the pressure from himself to create. Totally. And you're mentioning the same thing. It's like you are really tuned in with how you feel as to like when it's good to make music, how music kind of brings you in and out of different mental states and stuff. And it's really cool to see that. And I think that's something that comes with this lifetime of working on music, that you really get a sense of being in tune with yourself and like your mental state around music, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I'd love to watch that documentary, but is it on YouTube or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, it's really, really good, man.
Yeah.
He's interesting to listen to because I mean, you can tell, and I mean, same as you're mentioning here, but just really in tune with you know, how he's feeling while he's working on the music will have this real huge influence on what comes out.
Yeah, and it's like you said there, it's like being in tune with your mental emotions, you know, when you're producing. I think the lovely thing about making music is, you know, recently I started this production group here locally, and there's about, you know, we have a meeting where it's probably about 14 of us around a table every month, and the one thing that I found is what is really nice about it is when we talk about what me and you are talking about now, this kind of like this feeling that we're like, oh, I've got that too, I get that too, you know, and it's almost like this release of being able to tell other people, it's like, I feel like that as well, you know, like that anxiety when you're like, you know, you're not getting something done and it's okay and it's normal. It kind of touches on this whole, like, you know, they talk about artists being, you know, so susceptible to mental health issues and stuff, but I think this is it, because we read so much into our emotion and things, you know, and it's healthy to be able to talk about it, and we've been finding that when we're there, you see how happy people are to share how they feel when they're making music and feel that it's normal, you know, and it's like to go through these frustrations and things, and then you know, it's nice to know other people are like that. I think I go through when I'm having the worst time, when I'm not being able to output music the way I want it. I feel like I'm the worst producer in the world, and I should just give up. And you know, you tell yourself that, like, I'm not good enough to be doing this. You know, especially like we're talking. You know, this pressure from being recently on a label that I know, you know, so many people are trying to release on, and that, and it's almost like you sometimes you don't feel worthy of doing, you know, being on there sometimes, because it's a lot of pressure, because you know, some of the artists on Mau5trap are amazingly talented, way more talented than I could ever see myself being, and you know, and they make music such like so differently and stuff, and so it's really easy to question yourself when the music's not going great and to want to give up. But like I said, when you can talk to other people about it and see other people going through that, kind of picks you up again and makes you realize what you're in it for. And it's like,
oh yeah,
and like you're saying, Flume there saying, you know, when there's that pressure, you're not going to make good music. So
totally
to release that pressure and be able to feel like it doesn't matter, you know what I mean, everyone goes through this, and then just relax again and start making music for the fun of it. That's definitely the way out, you know what I mean. It's a mental battle to get there into that kind of state, I think, you know.
To have, I think that's definitely a road, not a roadblock, but something to address as an artist gets more exposure is when you're first working on stuff. I would imagine, you know, you can just do it. You're doing it for yourself in a sense, but you don't have maybe a lot of influence, you know, from, you know, fans or other listeners, right? So you can really kind of just dedicate yourself to what you want to do, and then send it out to labels and see if labels like it. You know, send it out to friends and have them listen to it and such. But after kind of taking those steps, and it's an amazing step to have. I mean, it's what every producer wants. But you're right. It has kind of that next step where you almost have to be able to focus in and say, okay, I need to just stay here, make music for myself, and then, you know, not let the other stuff get in the way, because I could see, that's at least what I've seen listening to these interviews with other artists and such, that can be this next step mentally to kind of address. And it makes the whole thing much more interesting, because making music is such an emotional and like cerebral process, because you have to be in touch with how you feel mentally, emotionally, really to kind of get in that state that you want to make the best music that you can possible.
And I think you're like in a very vulnerable state when you're making music. You know, I've had people want to sit in on sessions and stuff, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm okay sharing that process, because it's like, you know, it's the reason why I don't stream me making music, because I'll be honest, you know, 5 minutes in, I'm lost picking my nose, you know, like straight away. You know, I'm in a space that I have to be comfortable with the space that I'm in. And it's, you know, I could be making something and it could be absolutely awful for like half an hour, you know, but in my head, it's amazing. But I'm like, you know, but you need to be in that space before you make something that really is good. You need to go through all the awful stuff. You need to be able to, you know, to work it out in your own head and stuff. And that's a hard thing. I found recently, is that, you know, there's like two sides to it, and it's like the marketing and the you know, if I could say fans, you know, that side of people having this impression of what you do, and speaking to them about the process, and when the songs go out and they see the end product. But like the creative process, I like to complete almost like to make completely separate, because you know, you can't have expectation from outside when you're working on stuff. Like, I don't know how to explain it really well, but you know, like I like seeing Deadmau5 do what he does in the studio. You know, he kind of doesn't care what people are going to say during, you know, him working on stuff. And if he did, how would that change what he was doing? You know, so much. If he really cared what people were saying when he was streaming him working on something in the studio, you know, I'm sure we'd have a completely different Deadmau5. You know,
right.
You have to detach yourself from like other people's kind of opinion. Do you know what I mean? And get
I
to the
totally
zone
do.
and that. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's funny like that. I think recently that's the kind of thing when I get into the studio, you know, I try and not make some sort of like pre I don't know what the word is for it, preemption sort of thing of, I'm going to do this track for this label,
right?
And I'm going to do this style because I need to, you know, because someone said to me, you don't do this, or like, it's trying not to have that kind of like being tied down to something. It's just like, you know, I'm just going to start with this and just see where it goes. Those are like the best times, you know. I think if I try and set a standard right from the off and I'm trying to make something, I'm just going to be frustrated and give up after like, you know, an hour or so. So I don't know if that's something that kind of other people have, but definitely,
Totally. I mean, at least myself, for sure. No, I know other people do, but I've noticed with myself, like I'm a big fan of Lane 8 and the This Never Happened label. And I'm in no position right now to be sending out to labels like that, because I'm still really trying to kind of build out the sound and really learn better production techniques and stuff. So I'm not happy. But my point is, anytime I sit down and I think to myself, okay, I want to work on a track that would maybe fit that sound better, it's junk. I go back and listen to it and I hate it, you know?
Totally. I can totally feel your frustration as well, because I mean, I try and say this to people who want to go on to they ask about how did I get on the Mau5trap and that, and like, it's like, because you'd be a fan of Lane 8's label, but it's almost like if you aim too much for that, you'll never be happy. Do you know what I mean? Because you're comparing yourself to someone who's always going to be a step ahead of you, because they're not looking at what you're doing, they're looking at themselves, and they're always going to be that step ahead because they're being free with what they're doing. And that's what I'm trying to tell people is it's kind of like, you will find a home. Like if you just do your thing and create your own target. There's nothing wrong, I think, with like listening to a label and being like, oh, that's really good, I wish I could make some, you know, and you could take a bit of inspiration from it. But if you base so much on trying to achieve what other people are doing, you're going to forever be frustrated in yourself, because you're setting an endless goal. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be something like, you know, you've got to know your limits and be like, you know, you're saying there, like, obviously you don't feel you're at that standard yet, but there might be, you know, I don't know if that label, maybe you are at a standard, but like there could be other labels out there that you're making music that's just slightly different and it fits into that. Right. You know what I mean? I was trying to tell people, it's like, open your mind up a wee bit to other labels out there, you know, and then eventually you will find yourself going back to where you want to go, because it's kind of in your, you know, that's the way I felt like it went with Mau5trap. I was never out to get onto Mau5trap. I mean, I've always dreamt of it since I was younger, being on the label, but I never aimed to be on it. In some strange way, I ended up on it because, you know what I mean? There was no point when I was asking anyone for the demo email, or, you know, I wasn't, funny enough, it was Monster Get Down. Me and him were chatting, like, it must be 7 years ago or something now. And he wasn't on Mau5trap at that time. He was releasing on just various small labels at the time, and I mean, him would send a lot of music back and forth, and just a love for what we were both doing, you know, just that mutual connection, in that we were both kind of making tunes that they weren't similar, but I think we both had that kind of like thing we liked about them, you know. And he would send me his music, I'd play it over here, I'd send him my music, and he was playing it over there, and we both had this kind of like, I love Deadmau5, oh yeah, I love Deadmau5 too, and we weren't like super fans or anything, do you know what I mean? We weren't, but funnily enough, he ends up on the label, and then he's, of course, like, to the label manager, I've got this friend over in Scotland, he's making some good stuff, maybe you'd think about this. And then they get in touch, you know, as soon as my other deal was up, and they were wanting to get, and it's almost kind of that, you know, cliche of fate, you know,
Oh
yeah, things happen for a reason sometimes, you know. If you just don't try too hard at it, like, do you know what I mean? You'll always be disappointed, I think, if you set goals that are way too far ahead. You know, you got to keep it, like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
oh no, I really do. No, I think it makes perfect sense, because I think that, you know, there is this group of guys that are all releasing on Mau5trap now, and it turns out a lot of them know each other, but that's not just by chance. And this is another example of it, because I think it's that group of individuals, and it doesn't even have to be Mau5trap. It's these other guys on other labels that are kind of moving up, and they're getting more recognition, and they're releasing on more labels, because it's this group of people who are putting in the time, who have been putting, I mean, you started working on music, you know, years and years and years ago, and now it's forming into this thing that it's not overnight, you know, and I think that I really stand by that as kind of a means of inspiration for myself, because I think that if you really stick with something and you work hard on it and you're objective with yourself in whatever you're producing, that over time you'll end up achieving in what you're looking to do. I really believe that. I mean, and I think this is a great example of it, you know. You just weren't saying, okay, you roll out of bed, I want to be on Mau5trap, and then 2 weeks later on Mau5trap. It never works that way, you know. But you had the passion for music. It's this whole lifetime around it, and then it forms into this thing, and now you find yourself doing exactly what you wanted to do.
Totally.
You know?
And it's like, you know, I have no doubt from your attitude and respect for what you do, like, you know, you are going to be successful in what you do, because that's what it is. And this is what you try and get across to people who almost want to take it up overnight, you know, and you kind of have to say to them, it's like, don't expect success in that way. It's not something that comes that easy, and it's not something that, you know, it's going to happen like that. It's just got to be foremost, it's got to be a love, and it's got to be a passion, because it's going to be hard, it's going to be uphill, and the success, the real success and the real feeling of that achievement only comes from working hard for it in the first place, you know, and having that time. And like you're saying there, you touched on a good point about, like, you know, people on Mau5trap being kind of in that circle and knowing each other, and a lot of labels are like that, and that's something I noticed. And a lot of people will say to me, like, oh, you know, it's cliquey, or this is, you know, how do I get into this? I'm not excited. And the good thing about the electronic music is, like, it's, you know, no one from Mau5trap's met me in person, you know. Barely even had a phone call, you know. I wasn't judged on my social interaction or ability in that sense, you know, but it was just a passion for being in music that got me on that label, because it was you know, speaking to Charlie, Monster Get Down, we both shared that passion for the same thing, and it was just that pure sense of actually talking to someone, because you genuinely care, you know, you care about the music. And I think the worst thing you have as an artist is when people just contact you just as a stepping stone kind of thing. Yeah, and you'll know yourself. It's just like, you know, you get this message and you know straight away that person's only interest is, and the music industry is like that. But really, I feel like the people that are whittled out quite often are the people that can be seen through in that way, that they're just, you know, there's not really that underlying foundation of, like, you know, I'm a real music head here, you know, I'm interested, I want to do this and that, you know. And I think if you've got that intention, you'll go far. It just takes time, and you'll be happy whatever you do if you are really passionate about it. Yeah. I think the you know, the people that are just looking to kind of do a quick stepping stone, kind of blow up to the top quick, you know, then you do, as you mentioned, they kind of fizzle out, or because there's not that inventiveness behind their music. Because then it's not like, if you are really focused on, I want to be creative, I want to make a track that's unique and refreshing, and I really am passionate behind the music, I love the music I'm making, you're going to approach people in a totally different way. You know, it's not going to be you know, it's going to be more genuine. And you know, so I think it goes hand in hand that someone who's just trying to move up quickly, kind of fake it almost, it's just going to be, it almost will probably just be junk anyways, you know? Yeah, not to be rude, but I don't know. I mean, everyone's career relies on favors, you know.
Totally.
And everyone gets to a point where it's like, in order to get to the next step, you kind of have someone to vouch for you, or you have, you know, someone to give you that opportunity. And I understand that. And I think people are so caught up in that sometimes, they think it's just a case of, like, right, well, if I speak to the right person, then I'll be in. But it's like, you know, quite often these people in charge, they're more likely to want to find the person themselves and to discover that person themselves, and to feel it's their own choice, not the choice of the person asking. And that's something I try and get across to people, is like, you know, you can't force it with someone. Yeah, you can introduce yourself to someone and make those connections, but don't force it. You know, if you really are worthy of doing something, you're capable of something, and it'll show, you know, in time. And it's about that patience of just being like, you know, keep doing what you're doing, keep putting your effort into your art and learning and stuff. But, you know, that side, the networking side, the real difference is going to make is when it's the choice of the person who gives you the opportunity, and you're going to feel the benefits of that yourself, because you're going to know it's a real opportunity and it's not just something you've kind of hunted someone down for, you know, and put them in a corner kind of thing. Like, you know,
right.
You know, I get people messaging all sorts of things, you know, saying like, I'll trade you this, you know, I'll give you a gig here, or I'll do this and that if you do it. And I'm like, I'm just not interested, you know. It's not. It's. I feel like it's almost the worst thing about music is I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Do you know what I mean? And,
right.
And that part of it just really gets me down sometimes, because it is like people are always looking for that shortcut, and there is no shortcut. You know, if at the end of it, like I said, we're all in this just to make music. So really, what you're wanting to get out of it is just to be able to do that, and that should be the main goal. But then again, you know, some people would say I'm a purist, or I'm a bit of a snob for that. But you know, time moves on and things are different now. But yeah, no, I feel like there's others that feel like that. You know.
Yeah. No. I didn't mean to jump in. I agree totally, and I think that's something that's echoed on the Mau5trap label a lot. Like everyone on that label, in my opinion, is just. And I'm a fan of all of these artists regardless, so I know there are other labels like that, but it's really purely about the music. And that's why a lot of the artists are so different on the label, but it all just fits, and it's just everything is so high level in terms of production and composition. Yeah, so I don't think there's anyone sneaking in there that's just trying to, you know, jump and try and get famous. You know, it's all purely about the music, and that's why I love it. That's why I'm such a huge fan of that label.
Yeah, I think as well, like something that struck me with Mau5trap is like they don't take themselves seriously. Like people on the label tend to be quite humorous and quite like, you know, their personalities show through. And I think nobody's kind of like I don't know, you know, you see some artists like specifically in the techno kind of genre who take themselves way too seriously, and they just can't, you know. I just feel like. Yeah, I feel much easier to relate to other artists when it's not all about proving how big they are or how you know, successful they are and that. And Mau5trap was one of those ones where I just felt like we're all just a bunch of geeks, you know, who like music, and that was really good, and I love that. And I also feel like the listeners are part of it, and there's not a them and us kind of like feel to. You know, you're the listeners, we're the creators, and you know, you don't speak it's like everyone's in it. And I mean the forums and all that was like so new to me, seeing like Reddit and stuff. Like I had to make a Reddit account for this Q&A with Mau5trap, and that was like, oh my god, this is like another world. Like there's like so many people commenting on the label and following it, and it's a wake-up call of how many people are involved, you know. And it's amazing, because it does feel like there's fans bigger than the artists. Do you know what I mean? There's particular people who are much more well known just for being, you know, following just the label. Big fans.
Like Durant Miller.
Miller? Like Durant Miller. Yeah, like this blew my world, because I was just like, this is like a totally different thing. This is crazy, and that's amazing, for because that's. You know, a people's label, isn't it? That's exactly what it's there for. It's just this like the share this interest of like, you know, I love this and all that, and they're so vocal about it. And I mean, it's quite a scary thing as well, because I found like one of the most difficult things for me is being over here, because I do see the guys on the label who are in America and in the US, and who can meet up and go to gigs and things, and I feel like they can get that connection a wee bit more, you know, and especially with listeners over there too. And you know, it can be difficult to jump in from nothing from this side. And but saying that, yeah, everyone's been so nice. I got loads of messages as soon as I was on the label from other artists being like, you know, love the debut single. Yeah. you know, great work on this. I'm this person, by the way, blah, blah, blah. And everyone was just so friendly, and definitely did feel like there was egos. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it was almost like you feel like when you go on other labels, everyone's sort of like fighting for their kind of stance on it, you know, and not on this one. Everyone just wants everyone to do good, and that's really cool. Yeah,
dude, I love that. And I think I talk about it almost too much here, but you know, I found that, you know, people in this, maybe it's just because I have met people around this label specifically, or people that are interested in this label, but everyone in this little music community that I've kind of gotten to know is always so nice, man. You can send whatever it is, send tracks, just chat about music, whatever, and it's as you mentioned, it's not this kind of, this is where I am, that's where you are kind of mentality or anything like that. And that makes making music so much more enjoyable, you know, and you can just chat with people and everyone's cool and laid back, and it's just support for one another. And it's, I mean, you know, we're all just, I mean, you on Mau5trap, I don't want to like throw myself in that bucket, but like you guys are making incredible music, but as a whole, just in people that like the label, who are making music, whatever, as a whole, we're all just nerds behind our computer making music at the end of the day, you know? So it's
what
cool,
I like
man.
about it is, you know, most of the artists on that label are just your bedroom producers, and their, you know, their techniques are probably far more complex, and their knowledge and that it's really good compared to probably some of the major labels, the people that are, you know, working at big studios and stuff. And that again, I think, just comes down to the passion that the people on the label have. And I think Mau5trap particularly picked that out. They like people who are unique, you know, in their sound, and are passionate about what they do. And they're not looking for people who are not that, you know, they're not looking for marketable artists all the time. You know, they're like someone who just looks good and has a good social profile. I think it's right down to the music, and that's fantastic. And yeah, that's what the respect I have for it, I think.
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I lost my train of thought there, but
oh no. It's all right. It's all right. Yeah, but I totally agree. It's all about the music, and I love that. And I'm also, I mean, a huge fan of deadmau5 too. So just seeing that his kind of you know, I don't know, obsession about the music, his kind of don't give a fuck attitude is totally embraced by the label that he runs too. I think is just, I don't want to see anything else out of it, man. I just love it. I want to see it just continue to be this thing, and just it's exciting to see new artists come on, new releases come out, man. Just, you know, the different, you know, WAF that or We Are Friends that just came out recently, the new one, I mean, is amazing. So it's super cool, man. So then kind of moving into this year, I know it's somewhat kind of early in the year, but I know there's probably stuff you can't really say, but anything in particular that you're excited about here in 2019 in terms of releases, or is everything kind of kept under the books right now?
Tell you this, there's nothing kept under the books, not for you anyway. I can tell you, I'll tell you absolutely everything. The thing is, right, like I you know, there is times when I get stuff that's like, oh, you can't talk about this, but it's in rare occasion. And something I've learned recently is just like, it's just not to care about like keeping things under wraps. I'm sometimes, I used to be so overprotective about like, oh, you know, I've got this in the bag, but I can't talk about it. I think the main reason was because I used to get promised a lot of stuff, like big stuff, and then it doesn't pay off, or it doesn't happen. And that happens quite a lot nowadays. You know, when you work with like, particularly when you work with like management or big labels and things, and then they have, you know, because opportunities arise more, and you kind of think that everything's going to happen, and then it ends up, you know, for some reason it goes to someone else or something, and that's an everyday thing. You know, now is trying not to get too excited about promises, you know. But what I do know is happening, I've got a new EP coming up on Mau5trap.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, for the end of April. I haven't got a precise release date yet.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, but end of April, so it's quite soon. So, in fact, and what's the date today? Because I'm supposed to get artwork in for 25th. I've got to keep an eye on the date because I'm like, oh shit, actually I'm supposed to get stuff in. But I've sent in the masters and things. And yeah, so there's a 2-track EP going to be coming from them.
Oh yes.
And I honestly, man, I've had so much music to release over this past year. It's something I wanted to get out to people. Was like, I have so much music, but there's so many moving parts and things going on that in the last while, getting myself sorted with, like I was saying, I'm not directly working under management. I'm being advised by a management group at the moment, but I'm not signed anything. Do you know what I mean? And this has kind of been in this limbo mode for quite a while, and there's other things going on with like the licensing of stuff, and it was getting myself sorted for all that. So now that that's mostly done, I've got an EP in April. And I've sort of told people in person, but this would be the first instance of sharing it anywhere online. But I'm also starting my own label. So,
oh, cool!
Yeah, it's something I swore not to do for so many years. I was like, I'll never start my own label. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take myself too seriously. I'm not going to. But yeah, I've just decided that purely out of a scheduling kind of thing. I have tracks that I want to get out. They might not have a home otherwise. They're not things that that doesn't mean that they're not good. It's more when I listen to it first time, I'm like, this is not a Mau5trap song. This is
right.
And I'm sure the people in Mau5trap agree. And but I want to release it because it's something that I feel reflects my interest. So I've got a couple of those, and I'm gonna go real DIY with it. So it's like
cool.
I'm making like dub plates and
cool
vinyl dub plates. Yeah. So my mate in Glasgow has a lathe that he works for someone using and stuff. So I've made an agreement with him, and we're gonna. The thing is, with making dub plates, some people don't know, is like you have to sit with the record for the entire time of the cut in real time. So it's limited, and I mean limited as in like 10 copies, are gonna be made, kind of thing. And this is the idea I want to go along the lines. I do something different, because. If I make 10 copies and all 10 copies sell, then we'll go at it from there and see what happens. We're talking,
right.
I'm going to talk about getting a digital distribution deal and put out stuff. I mean, but this is the beauty of running it myself, is I can kind of do what I want, and not worry about. Yeah. People will be like, "Oh, you haven't got a plan together," and I'm like, it's
my thing, so I can have my plan if I want. Yeah.
It's not
I like that.
So
I like that.
Yeah, screw it. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it, and it's music I'm truly behind and I like a lot, and so I'm really excited about it. The first track that I'm releasing is something I've sat on for like ages. I did a wee preview on my Facebook, and a lot of people, when it's one of those good tracks, because it's like all my mates were messaging me going like, I want a copy of that. I want a copy of that.
Yeah.
And most of the time I can tell that difference in the feedback you get when it's some people will message me and be like, hey, that's a cool track, man, well done and stuff, and it'll just be nice. Right. And I'm like, it's a mundane sort of track, and they're like, but when it's something really, and people are like, no, I want that. Like, I really want a copy of that. So I was really happy, because I don't have many of those tracks that are, that my mates are kind of like, I really want to play this. So this is something that I can't wait to get out. And I've got I'm doing like a whole Inverness theme as well for the label, because I kind of feel like I said, I've got a tie to this place where I always feel like it's good to push it further out, and so I've got I don't know if anyone knows their history, but like Flora MacDonald is the picture sort of like on the record. It's a statue here at the castle in Inverness, and she was she smuggled out, I don't know if you've ever heard Bonnie Prince Charlie. The Jacobites, basically. He was the Jacobite uprising in the Highlands, so a wee bit of history to it. And she's a big statue. It's outside the castle, so I've got kind of her as a stamp that goes on the wax and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's a nice wee touch to the records, kind of makes it local, and people outside might know who she is and all that. So it's something I'm looking forward to. That's what I mean about almost doing the Mau5trap thing has made me realise that it's not always about getting it out to everyone all over the world, or on a platform that's considered worldwide. It's like there's still a lot of fun in making things personal, and no matter how many people get a copy of the music, it's like I'm going to enjoy doing it, and it'll be nice to have a bit of demand in that sense, a bit of like exclusivity, and like the sense of like the people who do have it know that it's something that means a lot, and it's not out there for everyone, kind of thing, but But we'll see what happens. I might totally change my mind on that tomorrow. Decide
Dude, no, that's
for it. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet though. No, I think that's super cool, man. And yeah, I mean, it'll be how I look at this, because there's been times where I've thought about picking up different things within music, and it will just be one more thing that will be your baby and your project, and it'll just make like this whole thing around music that much more exciting, because you'll have another thing to work on. Yeah.
And it's going to be a good opportunity. I have so much stuff I make that a lot of the labels turn down, but my friends, people here, who I play it to, and whether it's in the car, or like, I know, and these are people who are brutally honest with me. You know, I play them stuff and I'm like, that's awful, you know, or whatever. But they can turn around and be like, oh, that's your best track yet. Why isn't that going out? And I'm like, I don't know. Labels don't like it. You know, it's just the way it is. And it's so maybe there is something in it. You know, maybe it's like, well, maybe if I'm making stuff that people like that's not getting out there, then it's time to make a label. You know, and it's time to do something that it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you know, it might appeal to that people that have that same ear as me and have that, you know, sometimes you do feel that when people listen to music and they like certain things that you like, and they're not representative of the whole music market. You know, it's subjective, isn't it? And so the label's good for that. It'll be my sound. It'll be what I want to put out, and who knows what'll come of it. Like, hopefully it'll be well received, but we'll see. Dude,
that's awesome. And I know I've heard that from other, I mean, actually everyone. It's a waiting game. You know, you'll maybe get a release on a label, and then it's a lot of time of sitting on music. So I think this is a great way to say, you know, there's certain things you want to reserve or you kind of have over here for an idea that fits well for a sound for a label. But man, it's impossible just to stop and say, well, I'm sitting on 6 tracks. I'm gonna stop making music now, or whatever. You know, totally. You can't do that. So this is cool.
It's why I stopped signing, like, you know, optional agreements for like artists. It's like, you know, this whole tying into a label to you've got to send your only demos to this label, and I did this for like for quite a long time. I can't dispose of who that was. There's plenty of labels who signed this, so you know, could be any of those. But over that time doing this, it means that you're kind of like, you're waiting on that label and for their next release. And I'm sure it's not the label's intent is to slow you down your output, but it does. And it kind of, every time I get going and the hype gets going and I'm like, I've got a release and it's getting supported by this person, or it's getting played out and it's on the radio and that, and then it's like the follow-ups like a year later, like every time, you know, that's the next time I get a release out. And that's been going on for like 4 years for me. It's just like once a year. And you know, I'm just at a point when I'm like, nah, you know, this isn't working, this once a year thing. It's been good, it's been making slow progress, and it's great, you know, the things that have happened, but I'm at a stage in my life now where I'm like, you know, it's time to get like 3 or 4 releases out in a year. Good releases, all the same, you know, quality's still got to be there, but that's the only way I can get the momentum up to start doing more shows and start being kind of more, like we're talking about, getting into it full time, you know, start getting the rewards back so I can do it more. Because at the end of the day, that's the aim, is to be able to do it as much as possible. Because if I can do it, if I'm paid full time to do music, then I'm making music full time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Not just at evenings sort of thing. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think that's really important to mention too, because I did an interview with Deza, and he really mentioned the same thing, is like, music has a shelf life of like a month, you know? So he says he's always releasing because, you know, just it's everyone's that way. It's like people get excited about a track and listen to a release and love it, but then they're on to the next thing. So it's really important to be able to release frequently, because you want to stay in the eye of you know, that audience, because for whatever reason, I don't know, it's just, maybe it's human nature or whatever, but people get obsessed with music, like myself, and then, you know, it's what's releasing this week, because there's so much music being put out. I think that's part of it too. Is there's always releases every other week. There's something exciting, and it's exciting. It's really fun for that reason. But yeah, I think that's a really good idea. It's just, it allows you to stay, you know, in the eye of your audience and keep putting out music frequently. Yep.
Yeah, there's a balance to, like, you know, like we were saying there, like I think like 3 or 4 releases is a good amount in a year, because I feel like that's enough to keep people, you know, interested and to get enough out to people, but also you don't want to overdo it, and you don't want people to just be like, oh, it's another one, you know, another one. And it's, and it's important also to be realistic with yourself of like, how often am I making tracks that are good enough to release, or are, you know, not even just good enough to release. And good enough is not always good enough. You know, it's got to be something that's got like something different about it, it's going to perk people's ears and things, and how often is that output actually happening? Because it's easy to say, right, I'm going to do like every month, but then if you're realistic with yourself, it's like, I know for a fact I'm not making stuff I have a month sometimes where I can barely make music at all because it's such a busy month, and right. You know, if I'm being realistic with myself, 3 or 4 months, I would say every 3-4 months I have something that I'm like, I desperately want to release this, you know. So that for me was like the optimum kind of release times, you know, and that's what I think with the label is going to be good, because I know, say if I put 2 releases out on a label in a year myself, then I can look at another 2 labels, you know, look at Mau5trap maybe for the other ones, you know, and that's the good balance, because not everything I make is suitable for Mau5trap, you know. It's more the kind of techno side of stuff I feel like that they're more swinging with mine, even though they're very flexible on the label with like what they put out. I just feel like they don't want to, probably don't want to sway too much on what one artist is putting out, you know. Maybe, I don't know, that's maybe the feeling I'm getting off it, but yeah, you know what I mean.
yeah no, it's, dude, I agree. I mean, I think that's I don't know. I just think it's a good idea, because you're in this perfect position right now where you have a lot of notoriety from these releases, and now you have a platform, and you can say, hey, screw it, I'm going to start a label and start doing some self releases too, and then it'll just continue, this ball will just continue rolling. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it'll keep me happy. It'll be you know, and it's funny because, you know, I'm still not used to it. You say there, like, you've got notoriety, or, you know, doing this for releases and stuff, and it's not. It's funny because I see guys with far more kind of like online following and stuff, and a huge following. I've been told, but I laugh at it quite a bit, because I get told by people like, you know, there was a guy who wanted to book me for a festival over in India at one point, and he was saying, oh, you know, you need to get your social media like bigger. You need more people. You haven't got enough followers. And I was kind of like, oh, like, when did this become like, you know, the boundary to being a good artist?
It's weird. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's funny because I've never really been successful in that sense of like, social media is such a, I don't know. It's like, you know, if you go on my Instagram, I think I've only got like 1,000. I say only 1,000. You know, I'm grateful to have 1,000 followers, but it's like, you know, I could go on someone else's page. It's never released a label, and they could have like 10,000 or something.
Right.
So I think basing, like, that's something I've learned quite early on, is like, don't worry about, you know, the conventional kind of image of success. It's like, as long as you're getting music out and you're happy, then that's, you know, that's a good thing. So that's what to aim for, kind of thing. And hopefully that stuff will come along, you know, because it does help. It does help have people being able to access what you're putting out and following you, you know, to see that. But it's not the end all, you know. But that did make me laugh when that promoter did. You know? He's like, I'm afraid it's you know, I didn't even ask, you know, I didn't ask to play it. It was like, he got in touch, was like, oh, I want you to play this, and I'm like, oh, it's great. And he's like, oh, actually, it turns out you don't pass the grade because you've not got enough followers. So I don't know. Oh, okay then.
Well, I mean, it is funny because it's such a weird world with music today, because of course it has to be that focuses on the music, the love of music. You want to create something inventive, right? And it has to be your sound. You love the music you're making. And there's this whole other half that, as you mentioned, some people might only focus there, right? They might not even have released on a label, but they're just pounding Instagram and social media and building it up, you know? And it's this weird, I don't know, it's a weird world we live in, because a lot of this ends up seeming to have this focus on self-promotion, and if it's promoted properly and all these different things, and it can move away from what it's really about with the music. But again, I like to, how we were speaking about it earlier, it's like, I think if the first thing's not there, right, the music, then it's all just fluff, you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that this guy could hit you up and say, hey, we want you to play, but then only look at Instagram metrics, it's like, how good of a festival is that going to be?
And I'm telling you, I can't expose the name of the festival, but it's a big one. And this is what's made me like, wow, like, you can't really measure, you know, these things. And it's important to mention, we were talking about mental health earlier, about with people, and we were talking, you know, there's all these articles about how producers and DJs are affected by, like, Instagram and Facebook and seeing the success of other people constantly, because you scroll through your Instagram feed and it seems like everybody is doing better than you, and it's easy to compare yourself to other people and to kind of, and I think that is really difficult. I can see how that's difficult for people who are just getting into it and probably measure things by that, and seeing people, like we were saying there, someone on Instagram could be putting all their time into that. Right. And getting all these followers and making it, and they could be staging a lot of what they're doing and making it look like they've got the successful kind of life in music and all that. But it's like, it's not really under the surface. Or it's, these guys playing this festival, for instance, might have 10,000 followers or whatever, but, are they really actually that talented? Are they actually getting, stuff, the kind of enjoyment out of the music and things? And that's got to be the most important thing, again, like I was saying, and it's trying to get across to young people. It's like, the social media side, it's like, it's important to put up a picture every so often, or put on there, but don't get hooked up on what other people are putting up there. Don't believe everything you see. And and at the end of the day, what really I feel grounds me and makes me feel a lot better about what I do is actually just being part of the actual local community you're in. Don't look to the whole world all the time and online, because it's easy to see a picture of things as they're not. If you go out your own doorstep and just try and find people in real life that share an interest with you, you don't have to be the most. The people I know here in the community, they're not always the most popular people. They're not conventionally popular or anything. They just have a shared interest in music, and you'll find other people in your area. If I guess if you're lucky enough to be in a city or whatever, it's easy enough to go out and find clubs and places where you can share that interest with people. And I think that's the more important places to establish yourself, is with people in real life, rather than trying to appeal to everyone on a social media, if that makes sense. Like, I think the best connections I've actually ever made are like, in person and just chatting normally, and people who kind of, they're not judging everything by what they see on a profile kind of thing. They're just actually getting to know you personally. And
and especially around the music too. I mean, I think having a group of other people that you can bounce music ideas off of, like everyone has those people, you mentioned Monster Get Down, kind of small group of people you can send tracks to and bounce it off and then say, what do you think of this? That gives you a really good metric as to where the track stands versus getting, someone could get too off track, getting really caught up in all of these different things in social media and trying to get, tracks really popular, whatever. I mean, having that, grounded base of people that you can really trust their input, then you can say, hey, is this going the right direction? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, that I think is super important. That can be,
big time. Yeah. I've got like, I rarely send out any music to a amount of people. I don't get me wrong, I love getting sent music by people. It's great. I would never discourage anyone to send me anything to be like, what do you think of this? Because I always try and find time to get back to people and listen to stuff, and I think it's great. And if it works for you, then fantastic. But I decided a long time ago that like the only people I needed to send my music to are like 2 people. And that's enough of an opinion for me, because you kind of hone down who it is you want. Not because they're always going to say, I like that, but more because they're honest, or they share the same kind of like ear as you. But like, it's easy to lose track when you're on a project and you're working on it for weeks or whatever, or days, and you lose track of whether you think it's good or not. But you can trust someone to like send it to them and be like, right, honestly, what do you think? Is this like sounding okay? But if I send it to everyone in my, that I knew that does music, I'm always going to get like 90% of the time them going, yeah, cool, mate, sounds really good, or not my thing, whereas you've got like someone who will give you far more feedback, or you can get like an honest reply from. I mean, sometimes sending it out to too many, sending ideas out. And I did this, I still do this from time to time, but especially early on, send it out to lots of people. Hey, what do you think of this track? And kind of get mixed reviews or interesting feedback, and then some kind of here and there. And oftentimes, those people would be making different styles of music anyway, so which doesn't help, because they may not even like the track, because they listen,
I think it's funny while you were mentioning that, I pulled up this quote from Deadmau5 because I think it fits like so perfectly. He says, "The best piece of advice that I've ever received and think should be passed on to future creation is don't take advice." He says, "It's stupid, stupid, opinionated, and creativity shouldn't be limited." But it's the same thing you're mentioning, right? It's like if you send a track out to a bunch of different people, and maybe it's like let's just say like a really like, you know, house oriented track, right? And then someone says, no, this needs to be like more techno influence. You know, it's like you could start changing the track based on, you know, right? And you just gotta stick. Yeah,
I mean, there's part of this as well. Like the reason I don't send it out to a lot of people is partly I don't know if can you swear on this podcast?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you know, honestly, I don't give a shit. It's I'm not going to change the track. I'm probably stuck in my way, and I'm probably like, I finish a track, and I think a lot of people send out tracks quite often just to get reassurance. It's not really from a sense of like, I'm going to change it if you say to change it. Some people do, but you know, I know personally, there's no point in me sending it to people asking for changes and stuff. I'm going, oh, what would you do this? Because really, I'm not probably going to listen to them. I'm probably going to, you know, I'm probably going to chuck the track if it's not good enough. You know, the only advice I sometimes listen to is mix down feedback. You know, if someone says, this stands out too much, the kick drum's kicking through on my speakers, you know, it comes through a bit too hard. Right. Then I'll be, all right, cool. And I'll go back in the mix, change it. But creatively, you know, either you hit or miss. And that's kind of like the way I look at it is like, if I'm sending it to people and they're not liking it, then I'm probably like, right, scrap that, next project. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they go, change this, I'm like, really, you know, I just haven't got the patience for that. I'm not going to go back in. I'm not going to change it, you know, just because you said this or that, or I'm just going to commit to it and be like, well, some people said they didn't like it and some people love it, so I'm just going to go with it, you know. That's, you know, at the end of the day, you're not going to get anything done if you listen. Like you said, everyone's got an opinion, and sometimes, you know, more than others, you know, like I've sent it to people and they've given me a big list of what to change.
It's like, well, thank you. Yeah. I know it's a good point, because a lot of times, you know, and now I've definitely refined my own group. It's really just my buddies who listen to music. They're not producers, and I get some feedback there. And then a couple other people, one dude in particular, and now you can kind of get a sense too if it's like, oh my god, this is sick, or it's like, oh yeah, cool, you're working on that melody thing again. It's like, okay, so you know, you and then it's funny, 2 or 3 weeks later, the one that doesn't get a lot of response, you listen to it with fresh ears, and you're like, okay, this it's just not where I wanted it to go. It's just not clicking, and it sits on the back burner for months. You know,
that's totally the most beautiful invention I think anyone could ever make for music is like to be able to take your own ears off and like put on fresh ears that like forget what you've just made and listen to it for the first time. Like that would be the most amazing thing ever, because it's that repetitiveness of listening to something for so long, it loses its edge with you and you kind of forget what it is, you know. But when, like you're saying, you could sleep on it for a few days and you come back to it and you're like, oh, like this is, you know.
Right.
I think I actually define, this is probably another reason why I stopped sending people stuff, is as soon as, like, I used to, you know, you finish a track and it's so easy to get so excited about it. You're like, listen to this, and you send it to people because you know, you just want people to tell you it's good or whatever. And what I'll do is quite often, sleep on it, you know. I'll upload it to my SoundCloud privately, and it'll sit there. And I know when it's a good track because I can't stop listening to it. Because I'm like obsessed with what I've done. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I'm really feeling this. This is good. But if it's a bad track, I'll probably listen to it a couple of times, and then I'll probably put it down and avoid it, and then and come back to it. And then you know, the next day I'm maybe not feeling it as much, and then that's when you know it's probably not worth pursuing. You know, it's probably not worth going forward. But then when you get those tracks that you're just like, you can't wait to listen to the next day and listen back and see what you did, you know, or you listen to it in a car on the way to work and stuff. And that's, I feel like that's more of an important feedback phase than relying on other people's opinions, because, you know, after all, there's like 7 billion people out there, and there's bound to be people who are going to share your interest in what you, if you like something that much, there's going to be other people who are going to like it, and that's what counts, not, you know, what the general market think of what you've made, kind of thing. It's a hard thing to do for. It's easy enough to say, but I get it. It's, you know, you want to appease to everyone and you want to please people when you make music, and it's difficult. But I think that's just the way I've been over the years, is I just rely on myself, kind of thing, for my own feedback. I know myself when, after a few days, when something's good enough in my ears, you know, to put out, and people like it. If they don't, then who cares?
But I love that perspective. I mean, there's 7 billion people. It's like, do what you love, and then there's, you know, if it's I think if you're being objective with yourself, you know, as a producer for everyone out there, and you're being and you're like, okay, I've worked hard. I know I'm producing this well. The mix is good, but it's creatively what I want to make. I mean, people are going to like it. You know, you're going to find people out there that enjoy it, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's some wacky genres out there that like have millions of followers and stuff. And you're like, how could anyone like this type of music? But that's the world. And that's the beauty of music. It's subjective. And you've got to be, that's really what it's finding what it is that you like about what it is and stick to it and do what you want, you know, and do what you like about the songs. Don't try to make whatever people make just because it's and we were talking. It's funny because it's like I don't take my own advice, because we were talking earlier about, hey, Izzy, so you want to try it. Sometimes you do want to try and make pop songs, or you want to make, you know, rap songs and all this, and you just, because you know you're interested in it and stuff, and that's fine.
It's intriguing.
It's that should be the way it is you should just be able to get in the studio and just make whatever the hell you want, and you know, sleep on it a couple of days and decide if it's good enough to put out.
Yeah, man, I love it, dude. I love it, man. And this has been such a cool conversation, because like just getting a sense of your perspective is just, I don't know, it's always so fun. It's like, it's refreshing for me when I do these podcasts. I have these conversations, and then I can go back and work on music, because, you know, from a perspective for myself, being a huge fan of the label and seeing you release, and then just having this chat with you, and you're in the same mental frame as everyone else. You know, you're just working through the same things and working on tracks and struggling with writer's block like everyone, man. It's cool. And totally. Yeah, man, I've loved doing this, and you know,
same here,
cool. And you know, you were talking about earlier potential tours, you know, in the far future, something you're looking, if you ever end up in the States, you got to stop in Arizona, because I'm right by California where LA is, so we'll be close. And yeah, man,
I'd love that. Yeah, that would be amazing. And then, honestly, thank you so much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to talk about music and creativity, and what you're doing with the podcast is amazing. Like I said, I've been listening to them in the car and stuff. Started popping them on, and
awesome.
And I particularly like, you know, when you have experts on from different
cool,
areas of sound and that, and I think that's awesome. And it's great, like saying, to have this conversation about creativeness and all that. I think it's fantastic. I love doing it. I could talk for hours.
Hell yeah. Dude, I thank you, by the way, and I would love to do another one, seriously, man. Maybe around, you know, after the next release, or when you've kind of picked up with the label and maybe done the first release on a label or something like that. I would love to do it again,
anytime,
man. Whenever you want to. Cool.
And even outside this podcast, hit me up whenever, man. It's good to chat about music and whatever you're doing. I'll be listening to the podcast like from here on. I'm a fan now, so it's awesome. Thank you so much.
Hell yeah, man. I love it. Of course. All right, perfect. Thanks, man.
No problem at all.